And
Sir, we will not cover the variable cross section one dimension bar thing.
uh, variable cross section. Okay. So I don't have the plan for variable cross section. The reason I want to cover the higher order element is because even in 2D case, you would cover higher order element. Okay. Um, who asked this question?
Sir, me, Saurabh Bakshi.
Okay. Um, okay. Variable cross section. What happens with the variable cross section is, if you look at that integration, if you look at this integration while you were trying to find out the element stiffness matrix. So in this expression, you have this V hat transpose, then B transpose, B, then det, not det, then Jacobian, which is essentially LE by 2 in this case, times d xi, where xi runs from -1 to 1. Okay, and I'm not making any consideration whether I'm considering linear shape functions or quadratic shape functions. I'm not making any assumption. Okay. Okay. So in this case, this A is so far a constant, but I might as well choose it to be a function of xi. Okay. That is the only difference that is going to be there. Okay. So since you mentioned this, I want you to find out the stiffness matrix for a bar whose cross section goes from A0 to A1. Okay, take a single bar element, linear perhaps. Okay, so consider this and try to get the stiffness matrix for this one. Okay, so make it your assignment. The first assignment of the day, variable cross section. Okay, but A doesn't appear anywhere else. For example, if you look at the right hand side of the variational statement, A doesn't appear there, like P times VL or V hat transpose -1 to 1 in transpose Q J T xi. So in that expression also, A is not there. Okay, so A only appears within the domains of the stiffness matrix. So that is the only thing that is going to change. Okay, but a variable cross section might pop up in presence of either a linear bar element or a quadratic bar element. Okay. So determine the stiffness matrix of a bar element, linear, say, with variable cross section. A hint, you can write A to be A0 times N1 plus A1 times N2. For that matter, if it helps, you can say that the cross section is changing from A1 to A2. And the expressions for N1 and N2 is something you already know. Okay. So with that, you can integrate and find out the stiffness matrix for a variable cross section. Okay. Achha. So is there any confusion regarding variable cross section? Any other confusion? Or would you like to add anything else regarding variable cross section? সৌরভ তোমাকে বলছি।
No, sir.
Okay, so is it what you had in mind when you were thinking about variable cross section, or for that matter, gradually changing
Yes, sir.
Gauss
I was
modulus?
talking about the stiffness matrix. That was all about I was asking.
Okay. Chances are you'd encounter problems like this.
Sir, sound is not clear.
Sorry, can you hear me?
No, sir, sound প্রচন্ড কেটে কেটে আসছে, একদম ক্লিয়ার আসছে না। আপনার সাউন্ডটাই শুধু কেটে কেটে আসছে।
Okay.
হ্যালো।
হ্যাঁ, শোনা যাচ্ছে এবার?
হ্যাঁ স্যার, শোনা যাচ্ছে, কিন্তু প্রচন্ড কেটে যাচ্ছে, মাঝপথ থেকে কেটে যাচ্ছে, একটু ওয়ার্ড কেটে কেটে মাঝ কেটে কেটে
এবার কিছু হেল্প হচ্ছে?
হ্যাঁ,
এবার কি বেটার?
স্যার আমাদের ক্লিয়ার শোনাচ্ছে?
স্যার আমাদের ক্লিয়ার শোনা যাচ্ছে।
আচ্ছা, তাহলে এটা একমাত্র পাপায়েরই প্রবলেম হচ্ছে। Okay, so the chances are you'd encounter problems like this one: stepped variation in cross section. Okay, in that case you'll have to probably divide the geometry into 3 steps. I mean 3 different elements. This is element number 1 with cross section A1, then A2, then A3. Okay, so chances are you would encounter problems like this one, compared to you having the chances of encountering a variable cross section, gradually variable cross section element. Anyways, so you now talk about quadratic bar element. And when compared to linear bar element, this is a higher order element. Obviously, because the shape functions are higher order polynomials. And when you go from quadratic to linear, there would be lower order element. Okay. And typically people do not go beyond quadratic element. I mean, you would find no finite element software which uses other than linear or quadratic shape functions. Okay, you'll never find element, bar element, or 2D or 3D element which uses other than linear or quadratic shape functions. That being said, if you find Euler-Bernoulli beam elements, it has shape functions which are cubic in nature. Okay, but that's just the property of Euler-Bernoulli beam element. There is no choice. There is only one type of shape function that you can think of with Euler-Bernoulli beam element. Okay, you cannot choose a linear or a quadratic beam element with Euler-Bernoulli format. Okay, but then most finite element softwares, okay, instead of using Euler-Bernoulli beam element, okay, use Timoshenko beam element. Okay, simply because Timoshenko theory is a more inclusive theory compared to Euler-Bernoulli theory. Okay, which what it means is, imagine the type of beams that you have studied in your undergrads. The beam characteristic beam dimension, the characteristic dimension of the beam cross section, let's say the beam thickness, should be a lot smaller than the length itself. Okay, these are classified as thin beams, where h is much smaller than L. And when you are dealing with such beams, you can utilize Euler-Bernoulli theory. Okay, and Euler-Bernoulli beam element, so you can use Euler-Bernoulli beam theory, and Euler-Bernoulli beam element is based on Euler-Bernoulli beam theory. Okay, whereas Timoshenko beam theory can be used for thicker beams. Okay, and therefore Timoshenko this Timoshenko beam element, which is based on Timoshenko beam theory, okay, can be used for modeling thicker cross sections in finite element method. And when you move to Timoshenko beam element, there also you have the choice between linear or quadratic shape functions, only two. I can give you an example of ANSYS. ANSYS has this element beam 4. Okay, and this element is currently an archived element, which means ANSYS doesn't suggest you to use this element for modeling your beam geometries, okay, or one-dimensional geometries. Okay, it used to be a primary beam element. Okay, I mean probably a decade ago, but right now they do not suggest you to use this element. I mean, it will be very difficult for you to even find Euler-Bernoulli beam element in ANSYS. So you must be familiar with, not must be, some of you must be familiar with the workbench version of ANSYS, but there is a more classic version of ANSYS. I mean, by today's standards, even workbench version of ANSYS is quite old, but there is even an older version, which is APDL version. Okay, so you can only find beam 4 in APDL version. Okay, and to incorporate beam 4 in workbench version, you probably wouldn't need the help of commands. Okay, like command line commands. So in APDL also you will you'll have to, you know, if you only know about beam 4, then you can find out this in APDL. I believe they suggest 188 and 189. These are the linear and quadratic. I may be wrong with the number, but currently they also this is the standard beam element. These are the standard beam elements. They also are linear and quadratic. Okay. Now, now what we have seen that when we try to solve a differential equation, also known as a strong form, okay, one of the ways we employ is to convert it to weak form. And when we do convert the strong form into a weak form, there is no loss of information. Okay, so basically when we convert the strong form into a weak form, okay, they are basically equivalent, which means I can go back to the strong form from the weak form. That's where there is no approximation. But the approximation comes when in the weak form I take a substitute function space. Okay, I mean, let's say v hat is the function space in which I'm trying to solve my function. For example, in the case of linear bar element, if I take a single element, okay, this is how you can change within the bar, like a straight line. If I take more than one element to divide the same bar, then you have this choice to be u1, u2, and u3, let's say, at this end. Okay, imagine there are two elements, each being linear bar elements. So in total I have 3 nodes, and at each node I have 1 degree of freedom, so total 3 degrees of freedom. Okay, and you can only change in a piecewise linear manner. Not necessarily that is the correct solution. In most cases that is not the correct solution, given the fact that u is only a linear function when q is 0. If q is anything other than 0, this is not going to be true. So therefore we limit our function space. Let's say this capital V is a function space of all possible functions. So this is a set of all possible functions, sinusoidal, polynomial, everything. And this is the limited set in which I'm looking for the solution. So my approximation comes from, or the source of my error is not going to a weaker form, but by choosing a smaller function space for solution. Now again, I might be repeating myself from the previous class, but I'll do that. Again, why do I choose a smaller function space? I could just have, gone for the infinite space. It's because when I do choose a smaller space, I can use a numerical method. Then why do I use a numerical method? Because to have a closed form solution, okay, to have a closed form solution, the type of solution that we get by integrating the differential equation, okay, that is not possible for most of the problems. Indeed, that is possible for bar type of geometry. I mean, whatever the function q may be, I can still integrate this quantity, right? I can always integrate this. Q may be sine of x, unless it is, let's say sine of x divided by e to the power x, very difficult function to integrate. Other than that, in most cases, I can integrate this. Okay. But then, why am I using a numerical method? Okay, and why am I devising a method to get an approximate solution for something for which I can directly get the exact solution? The thing is, we are only interested in the method, and then we also want to benchmark the method, okay, or to check how far is the method accurate with our closed form solutions. We want to have an estimation of the approximation, okay, and that's why for the simplest problem like this one, for which maybe we can easily get an exact solution, a closed form solution, we devise a method for approximate solution. Okay. Now in earlier case, the set of functions that were admissible for u were piecewise linear function. It's a different straight line in different element, but piecewise linear function. Okay. This time we make this set a little bigger. Okay. Now it can accommodate all possible quadratic functions, piecewise, of course. That means right now it is going to be within a given element one type of quadratic curve. In the other element, it can be another quadratic curve. Obviously, there is a possibility of having a discontinuity of the slope. Okay, there is a possibility of having a discontinuity of the slope, but in two parts, it is going to be quadratic. That's the idea. Okay. Now, u is going to be a quadratic function. Okay. And that means this is a general expression, right? Uy ni in a given element. Okay. Summation over I, uy ni. Now, these ui's are the values of the degree of freedom at the nodes. So these are the nodal degrees of freedom. And this is the DOF value at a given xi, let's say. Okay. And these ni's are at the polynomials of xi. So when I say that u is going to be a quadratic function of xi, these ni's are going to be quadratic. Okay. And these ui's are going to be the coefficients of that polynomial. Okay. Now, how many coefficients are required to define a general parabola or a general quadratic curve? This is a question for you.
So 3.
3. You already know the answer. I know that. Okay. But for the remaining people,
So 3.
are you convinced with that we need 3 coefficients? You see, u is supposed to be C0 plus C1 xi. In some form, it is supposed to be like this. This is how you define a quadratic function. Okay. General quadratic function. So there should be u1, u2, and u3, which means that the element itself would be having 3 nodes. Okay. A single element, so single quadratic element must have 3 nodes. And let's say this is the physical coordinate. So x1, so the physical coordinates are x1, x2, and x3. And the natural coordinates, like the previous case, -1, 0, and 1. Okay. The degree of freedom value goes from u1, u2, and u3. And the variation v1, v2, v3. One more thing about variation. In the last day's class, or even the examples that you'd see in future, or even today, we are never going to be evaluating the variations. Okay. Variation itself is only an abstract, only a concept. Okay. That's a very powerful concept that lets us have the variational statement, okay, which is a powerful way of developing the finite element method. Okay. And eventually we end up not evaluating V. To be frank, we can never evaluate V because V is arbitrary, except for some boundaries. Okay. There has to be some boundary where V is 0. Okay. And that boundary is called gamma u. Okay. And there has to be a gamma u, otherwise the system matrix would not be invertible. System matrix in any way would not be invertible. Okay. But then you will have redundant equations. Okay, so now what we do is we will try to define the shape functions. Okay, so these are the basic properties of the shape functions. If I would like to evaluate any shape function at any node, this is the formula. The ith shape function, so there would be 3 degrees of freedom, so there would be 3 shape functions. No surprise in that. But the ith shape function value at the jth node, let's say n1, value of that at second node is going to be 0. Okay, it is going to be 0 if I is not equal j, and if I equals j, it is going to be 1. And this whole thing can be represented with a single expression, delta ij, known as the Kronecker delta. Now, what are Kronecker delta? Kronecker delta are the different components of an identity matrix. Okay. So imagine this is the shape function n1, this is the shape function n2, and this is the shape function n3. Value of that at the first, second, and third node is likewise. So n1, 1 at node 1, 0 in the other two. n2 is 0 over here. At second node it is 1, and in the third node it is 0. And similarly, you have the expression for n3. So Kronecker delta form the identity matrix, and the value of the shape function is essentially Kronecker delta. One more thing, sigma ni must be equal to 1. And why is that? Look at this expression. U equals summation ui ni. Now imagine at each and every node, the value of u is the same. u1 equals, u2 equals, u3 equals, u star. I have already said this, but think of it as, recapitulation. So u3, u star is the value at each and every node. And that would simply mean that the bar itself is having a rigid body motion. It is translating along x-axis everywhere by the same amount. So that means anywhere between 1 and 2 or 2 and 3, you must not experience u not equal to u star. Okay, you should not experience this. You should be u star everywhere, which means at an arbitrary location, you see, because u1, u2, and u3 both all are u star, so this quantity is u star times sigma ni. And if you need u to be u star everywhere, that means everywhere this sum must be equal to 1. So that provision must be there. So the rigid body motion should be a provision within the element. Although we would like to prevent any rigid body motion, you have to do equilibrium type of analysis. But you see, finite element method is not just for equilibrium analysis. These are also for dynamic analysis, where the object could be translating, accelerating, vibrating, all sorts of things. Okay, so even the bar element has its axial vibrational modes. So all of these are possible. So that means the element must be given a provision for rigid body motion. Okay, which is a possibility under certain circumstances. In the region of dynamic analysis, rigid body motion is quite possible. Okay, so it must be given that that provision. Okay, you see, this is how our model of the real life world, okay, changes. We evolves. So we start with the modeling of a particle which has no dimension. Then we go for rigid bodies which have dimensions, but the changes in the dimensions are not substantial. Okay, and then we move for deformable bodies. Okay, you cannot achieve the higher version of our evolved model without achieving the lower version. So if you want to model the deformations, you should be in a position to model the rigid body motion as well. Hence, these two conditions must be obeyed by the shape functions. Okay. Now let us try to define these shape functions. As we have already discussed, let's say this is the xi axis. And this much is 1 along y-axis, and this one is -1 xi, and this is +1 xi. Okay. So, and this one is xi equals 0. So this is node 1, this is node 2, and this is node 3. So the first shape function at node 1 is 1, and then it is 0 over here, and also 0 over here. The drawing is pretty inaccurate. Okay, it's a parabola. Imagine there is this other part of the parabola that I'm not drawing, because that's not in the part of this element. The next thing is, think about n3. n3 must be equal to 1 at node 3, and at node 1 and node 2 it is 0. So it's just a mirror image. And you can also imagine the extended part of the parabola. Again, the drawing is pretty inaccurate. Okay, they must pass through the origin, and the shape is also not correct. Now, for the second shape function, this is what it must look like. So it has a value of 1 in the middle, but in the two boundary nodes, the values are 0. So this one is n2, this one is n1, and this one is n3. And how do I write? You see, the xi values are -1, 0, and 1. Now this is how we define the shape function. The shape functions are Lagrangian polynomial. Okay. So first of all, we'll have to think about where are the shape function 1 equal to 0. For example, n1 is 0 at node number 2 and node number 3. So it is 0 when xi is 0. And it is 0 when xi is 1. Okay. Can you see this? It is 0 when xi is 0, and it is 0 when xi equals 1. So if I write n1 like this, it is going to be 0 at these two nodes. But if but it must also be equal to 1 at node 1. But then if I substitute xi equals -1, it is going to be -1 times -2, which would be 2. So I need to divide this with 2 so that I get a value of 1. Okay. So I need to show this, that this is how you can get the first shape function. Okay. So do you understand the logic here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So can you write down the expression for the other two? Or rather, can you derive the expression for the other two shape functions?
Sir,
বলো।
sir, into টা zeta in xi into xi plus 1 by 2. Sorry, n3 টা হচ্ছে xi into xi plus 1 by 2.
ওকে,
আর n2 টা xi into xi plus 1 into xi minus 1 by 2.
ঠিক করে দেখোনি, আমার মনে হয় এইটা হবে ইনটু। আর এইটা হবে।
হ্যাঁ স্যার, n3 টা ওটাই আছে, xi into xi plus 1 by 2. হ্যাঁ, n3 ঠিক আছে।
ইনটুটা দেখো তো।
হ্যাঁ স্যার,
ইনটুটা কি অন্যরকম মনে হচ্ছে?
না, ইন্টুটা ওয়ান মাস ডিটেক্ট করে। আচ্ছা,
হ্যাঁ স্যার, n2 টা একটু গন্ডগোল হয়েছে।
ঠিক আছে তো। আচ্ছা, এর পরের কাজগুলো আমার গলার আওয়াজ শোনা যাচ্ছে?
Yes স্যার।
আচ্ছা,
হ্যাঁ, এর পরের কাজগুলো হচ্ছে the way we did for linear bar element। আগের দিন আমরা লিনিয়ার বার এলিমেন্টের জন্য যেভাবে কাজ করেছিলাম সমস্ত কিছুটাই। ওকে, সো I'll just give you the outline. Okay, so these are the steps that we are supposed to follow. তার একটা জিনিস বলে নি, the thing is I'm having some problem actually in my mouth. Okay, so that's why I couldn't take the class on Saturday, so I had to visit a dentist, and I'm still having that problem, and it's really hard for me to talk. So can you derive on your own? Okay, and when you derive it, after that we will discuss the answers. Okay, so these are the steps. So in the first step, what we would write is U is n times U hat. Obviously, n is n1, n2, n3, and U hat is U1, U2, U3. Okay. Similarly, we would write V equals V hat transpose n transpose, like the other day. Okay. But step 2 is going to be crucial for us. Step 2 is what we didn't do in case of linear bar element, because we didn't have to. You see, we have two boundary nodes in quadratic bar element, which are 1 and 3. Their locations are fixed in space, which means, yes, of course, you can divide the bar into more than one quadratic element. You can divide it to 2 quadratic elements. Okay, which is fine. But then once you have divided into 2 elements, I mean, 2 elements could be unequal also. Okay, one could be larger than the other, and you can also divide it into more than 2 elements. But then once you do the meshing, once the meshing is done, okay, these boundary nodes, the location of these boundary nodes are fixed in space. But your choice of this so-called mid-side node can be crucial. What I try to mean here is, you see, because this is also isoparametric element, which means the coordinate, the physical coordinate, is also mapped by the same set of functions. We should mean that the coordinate itself is a quadratic function of xi. If I take the node to anywhere at any arbitrary location within the element, you see the mid-side node, I mean, I shouldn't be calling it the mid-side node. The second node, which is within the element, okay, the internal node, I could be taking anywhere from the left hand to the right hand. And for an arbitrary location, the physical coordinate would be a quadratic function, just like the degree of freedom or the variation. Okay, but I don't really want that. In a given element, I want the physical coordinate, which is x, to be mapped linearly
হ্যালো হ্যালো কি হলো?
হ্যালো
হ্যালো।
স্যার লেফট হলো তো।
হ্যাঁ,
আগের দিনের মতো প্রবলেম নাই।
কোথায় গিয়ে কেটে গিয়েছিল একটু বলতে পারবেন?
স্টেপ 2 এর পর 2 এ শুরু হচ্ছিল, স্টেপ 2 এর ডিসকাশন চলছিল।
ওকে, okay. So the thing is that because we are using an isoparametric element, the physical coordinate is mapped through the same set of shape functions as the degree of freedom. And although the locations of the two boundary nodes in a given element is fixed in space, the third node or the node number 2, শোনা যাচ্ছে এটা যেটা বলছি?
ইয়েস স্যার।
Okay, the location of the third node is not fixed, and you have all the freedom to choose that. But if you do choose arbitrarily, x would be an arbitrary quadratic function of xi. Okay. Instead, if you choose the node 2 to be exactly in the middle of node 1 and node 3, then you'll see that x becomes a linear function of xi. You see, any linear function is secretly also a quadratic function. It's just that C2 is 0. You can achieve that by taking node number 2 exactly in the middle. And how do you do that? You can substitute x2 equals x1 plus x3 by 2. বোঝা গেল এই পার্টটা?
Yes, sir.
বুঝতে পারা গেছে?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So can you do this and find out the expression of x as a function of xi? So first write x in this way and then substitute this expression and then get the expression of x. Pagal expression.
Sir, xi into xi minus 1 by 2 plus 1 minus xi square by 2 into x1 plus xi into xi plus 1 by 2 plus 1 minus xi square by 2 into x3.
একটু ভালো করে দেখো. I guess you will get an expression like this. You're supposed to substitute for x2, so there would be no x2.
হ্যাঁ স্যার এটাই আসছে একটু আরেকটা স্টেপ সিম্পলিফিকেশন করলে এটা এসে যাচ্ছে
Okay. So can you recognize these two functions? These are the shape functions n1 and n2 of linear bar element. Okay.
Yes, sir.
এইগুলো চিনে যাচ্ছে এই দুটো ফাংশন?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now the next step is to get the Jacobian, which is dx dxi. And what is the value of that? জ্যাকোবিয়ানের ভ্যালু কত আসছে?
Sir, x3 minus x1 by 2 dx dxi.
Where LE is the element length.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Acha. So next you would go for step 4. Okay. Next thing is you'll try to get the expression for the strain or u prime, which is du dx. Essentially, if you are using the chain rule, du dxi times dxi dx. And this term dxi dx is the inverse of the Jacobian, which means 2 by LE. Okay. Now, when you try to detect the derivative of u with respect to xi, you need to remember that u is essentially n times u hat. So these ni's are the functions of xi. The individual n1, n2, n3 are the functions of xi. So you are supposed to take the derivative of those shape functions. And u hat only provides the coefficients, which are not functions of xi. So this representation means it is dn1 dxi, dn2 dxi, dn3 dxi. Okay. And this whole thing, is essentially the B matrix. So in the end, this quantity is B times U hat. Try to get the expression for B hat. বি ম্যাট্রিক্সটা পাওয়া গেল?
So 1 by LE into 2 xi minus 1 minus 4 xi 2 xi plus 1.
ওকে, যেটা পাবে নিজেরা চেক করো, ঠিক আছে? Now the next step would be to evaluate the element stiffness matrix. Okay, to get the stiffness matrix, and the next step is to get the force vector due to the distributed load. So if you have the expression for B, try to get the expression for the element stiffness matrix.
So we have to perform also the integration.
Yes. So so you are supposed to, so unlike the previous case, this time you will see that the terms in the B matrix, okay, are functions of xi, basically linear functions of xi. Now, when you multiply this whole thing, of course, EA you can take as take outside of the integration, because you can think for the timing that these are constants. So B transpose B will give you a set of quadratic functions in xi, okay. But then you need to remember this, that this is an integration from -1 to 1. So whenever you encounter an odd function, let's say xi cube, etc., these things integrated over -1 to 1 is 0. Whereas if you're integrating, let's say, xi squared from -1 to 1, it is actually twice 0 to 1 xi squared dxi. Same goes for any number. Let's say if you are integrating this, why is that? Because these are even functions. Even function and odd function. Keeping that in mind, that simplifies a lot within this integration. You'll encounter terms involving xi, so don't integrate them. And you can use this for the even functions. अगला एक्सप्रेशन
Yes, sir.
ওকে, ঠিক আছে, তুমি একটু ওয়েট করো।
Okay.
পাওয়া গেছে স্যার।
ওকে, ওকে, কি এক্সপ্রেশন পাওয়া গেল স্টিফনেস ম্যাট্রিক্সের?
Sir, EA by 3LE into 1 minus 8 1 minus 8 16 minus 8 or 1 minus 8 1. Yes.
1 minus 8
1.
1.
Yes.
Okay. Next.
Minus 8
Minus 8
16 minus 8.
minus 8. Okay. Next.
1 minus 8 1.
1 minus 8 1. I'm not convinced that this is the correct expression.
Oh.
You see, if u1 equals u2 equals u3 equals u star, okay, then ke times u hat should be 0 0 0. That means the, if the, you know, the bar rigidly moves, okay, along x-axis, if it is rigidly moving, then no force should be generated, which means if you take any row, sum of that row should be 0. Look at the second row. The sum of the second row is 0. Okay. আর কেউ কিছু বলবে? আমার মনে হচ্ছে যে we might encounter 7 somewhere. Are these two entries 7?
স্যার ফার্স্টের এলিমেন্টটা কি 7 আছে? মানে ফার্স্ট
I think এইটা
হ্যাঁ
Sir,
ফার্স্ট রো
Sir, matrix, sir, for the inside the matrix, 7, 1, some 8 or 7, 1. Sir, first the matrix is 7. It is
First
confirmed
term.
that first element of the matrix is 7.
So this one is 7, right?
Yes, it is 7, sir.
Next.
7, 1, 7, 1.
No, I don't think it would be 1, because the matrix also needs to be symmetry. You see, I know that the central element is 16. I remember this. Okay, which means the two others should be -8 and -8. There is no reason for the second node to be partial to either the third node or the first node. So both should be -8. And by this logic also, these two should be the same, should be, you know, the sum of these two should be negative of this one. So because the matrix itself is symmetric, these two entries should also be -8.
Sir, logic behind the symmetry, why it should be symmetry?
Symmetric. The symmetry comes from the logic of strain energy. Okay.
Okay.
You recall that did I mention that there is a symmetric bilinear part, AUV equals LV? Did I mention this?
Okay. In previous class.
Yes.
Yeah. That is the means for the strain of the element, it is forced to symmetry, should be the symmetry of the matrix, right?
Yeah. See this because the stiffness matrix originates from EA U prime V prime, right? Okay. Now, if you recall, what I am integrating is B transpose B. Okay. Now, in matrix, see, this part is scalar, so I can bring it outside. Also constant, that's why I can bring it outside. So this doesn't matter. So let's say B transpose is 3 cross 1, and this one is 1 cross 3. So it's a 3x3 square matrix. Now, this thing that B transpose B itself is symmetric. Why is that? Because if you take transpose of A times B, two matrices, it is going to be B transpose A transpose. Now, once you have B transpose B, and if you take the transpose of that, that is going to be B transpose and B transpose transpose, which is B transpose B, which means the transpose of B transpose B is B transpose B, which means it belongs to the set of symmetric tensors. That's how I know it is going to be symmetric.
Okay, okay, sir. Understand, sir.
Okay, so check your calculations. I think this is what the expression should be. You see, it is going to be 16 here. The central number I remember. Okay, so I marked that. But since the central number is 16, it has no reason to be partial to node 1 or node 3. It is in the middle, second node. Hence, both the entries are going to be -8. And because these two are -8, these two are also -8. Okay. But I remembered some of the terms are also 7. Okay. And each row must have a sum of 0. And because it is symmetric, each column also has a sum of 0. Why each row must have a sum of 0? Again, if it has a rigid body motion, then there should be no forces on each node because it is not being compressed. Okay. So no strain would be developed, no strain energy would be developed, nothing. Which means all the entries in this product, which is essentially the showing the internal force within the bar, okay, K times U hat. So each of these terms should be 0. If U1 equals U2 equals U3. The only way that is possible is the sum of each row is equal to 0. So that's how I know that some of these entries are 7 and some of these are 1, and this -8 will cancel them out. Okay, but I just remembered that way, but you should check the derivation. I believe that would also be in the notes, so it's not a big deal. If you cannot derive it, you can check over there. Okay, and then try to derive on your own and see if you can get the correct result. Okay, so what we can do is about the force vector. Okay, so your assignment 2 is to get the element stiffness matrix, and assignment, I mean, you can say the second assignment of assignment 2 is to get the element force vector due to the distributed load. Okay, if Q is Q0, case A, and case B, if Q is, let's say, a linear function, okay, for these two cases, try to get the expression for the force vector due to the distributed load. Okay, so these are going to be your assignments. बुझेगा ना?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we'll meet on Wednesday morning. Okay, you see, I have this plan. Okay, on Wednesday's class, on Wednesday we'll have the class from 9 a.m. 1 hour class. Okay, instead of having this evening class, if we can accommodate, possibly we can do this class on Saturdays at 11. Okay, so unless otherwise mentioned, you can think of these two are the scheduled class times. One is 9 a.m. Wednesday and 11 a.m. Saturday. Unless, of course, you have any issue with the class timings. Is this fine? Is this timing fine?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So shall we meet on Wednesday at 9 a.m.? my suggestion is keep on doing the assignments. Okay, although I'm not checking, I'm not asking you to submit your assignments, but keep on doing them. Okay, and not just as rough, but also the way showing all the steps. For example, if you are preparing a lab report, I mean, I know even in semester you do not answer quite that way. So let's say if you are submitting a lab report, like with that sort of regard, try to do the assignments in a fair copy. If no other evaluation method is specified, I'll be evaluating based on the assignment. Okay. And since yes,
স্যার আগের দিনের অ্যানসার গুলো একটু বলে দিবেন, মানে যেগুলো দিয়েছিলেন প্রবলেমগুলো, অ্যানসার গুলো একটু যদি বলে দিতেন সুবিধা হতো।
শোনো কি প্রবলেম দিয়েছিলাম বলো তো?
ওই আপনার এল এ ই পি এর ভ্যালু দিয়ে দিয়েছিলেন, দিয়ে বলেছিলেন রিঅ্যাকশন ফোর্স U2 এর ভ্যালু বার করতে।
আচ্ছা আচ্ছা,
আর কম্পারিজন করতে যে ক্লোজ ফর্ম সলিউশনের।
ক্লোজ ফর্ম সলিউশন, এখন দেখো ক্লোজ ফর্ম সলিউশন, ঠিক আছে, সেটা তো তুমি বার করতেই পারো, মানে কিউ যদি দেয়া থাকে ক্লোজ ফর্ম সলিউশনটা কি হবে সেটা তো বার করতেই পারো, ঠিক আছে। আমার মনে হয় না ক্লোজ ফর্ম সলিউশন আর তোমার হচ্ছে এই কি বলে মানে ফাইনাইট এলিমেন্ট সলিউশন, এই দুটোর মধ্যে রিঅ্যাকশন ফোর্সের ভ্যালুটা একটু আলাদা হবে না, ঠিক আছে, এটুকু আমি তোমায় বলতে পারি, ঠিক আছে।
রিঅ্যাকশন ফোর্স I got for the first problem, reaction force is negative, right? So I am little bit confused about that.
Why the reaction force is negative? Okay.
Yes.
I'll tell you what the reaction force means in this case.
Okay.
You'll have to think of everything in terms of the free body diagram of the bar. Okay. You see, your finite element method doesn't realize there is a wall. Okay. It just knows there is a bar, and that bar has been somehow kept fixed over this location. What is keeping it in that fixed location? It doesn't know. So what you are drawing is the free body diagram of this bar. So on the right end, if you are applying a force of P, in the left end, you will be developing a reaction force. Okay. And that reaction force should be equal and opposite to that P. If you add some distributed load also, okay, so a linear function, quadratic function, a constant, whatever the case may be, so it is going to be P plus integration Q dx, but with a negative sign.
Okay, sir.
Okay, because the net force in the bar should be 0, because the bar, as you can see, is in equilibrium.
Okay.
Okay, so here if you are talking about reaction force, it's not how much force the bar is applying to the wall or anything. It's not that. It's how much force must the bar be subjected to in order for it to be in equilibrium under the set of external forces that are already being applied. মানে সোজা কথাটা হচ্ছে তোমাকে বারের ফ্রি বডি ডায়াগ্রাম থেকেই বার করতে বলা হচ্ছে।
হ্যাঁ স্যার, ওটাই ভুল করছিলাম আমি, বারবার ফোর্সটাকে আমি বার করছিলাম। ঠিক আছে, বুঝেছি।
বুঝেছো?
ইয়েস স্যার।
Okay, so we'll meet on Wednesday and keep preparing your assignments. রাফ তো করবেই, একটা ফেয়ার কপিও তৈরি করবে। Okay, thank you.
থ্যাংক ইউ।
Okay, sir.